Hi, Nicola. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Really well. Really well. Thank you very much for coming on the Young Developer Podcast and giving me your time.
No problems.
It's I think it's been a quite interesting couple of weeks. I think we were meant to meet, I think, a couple of weeks ago, but because of the lockdown and stuff, it's been moved to Zoom, so it's okay.
But that's fine. I mean, for those that are watching this, we've essentially been talking for the past half hour just on and off because we've been enjoying each other's company. This has been lovely.
It's interesting. It's good to catch up and see like somebody that's happy and smiling and doing well through these times, because I know a lot of people struggling, and I want to do my best to help everyone, but it's actually really good to see someone like yourself smiling and just finding a way to get through. So how's your morning been so far? What have you been up to?
Well, we do a team Zoom meeting every morning, which probably sounds a little bit over the top, but it's quite good because we've got a small team.
Yeah.
So we do that from 9 until whenever it cuts us off. And prior to that, I've been doing a 4K run every morning. Literally every morning for the past 3 weeks. This is week 4 of the lockdown for our office, because we had a guy, we're in this really cool like Gothic building in South Melbourne.
Okay.
And one of the beautiful guys in our in the building, like it's only a 3-story, he lives above us, and he thought he might have had COVID and he had to go into lockdown. And so for almost 4 weeks now, we've all had to work from home.
Yep.
So routine, set up early, run to this cute little Italian cafe, pick up a coffee, take my dog, and then we walk back, and then I get here for my 9 o'clock meeting. It's good.
Perfect. It's a great way to start the morning. I'm unlike yourself, I've been doing nothing, and I've quite enjoyed it. This has been the first time in my life where I haven't had to train 5-6 times a week for sports. So for me, it's been lovely to do very little. But I recently started a health and wellbeing program for our company. I work for DFC, Dennis Family Corp, and basically doing like 4 days of yoga in the morning or in the afternoon for our company, where we get a Zoom instructor to teach us yoga.
Yeah.
And then we have like a personal fitness trainer that comes once a week to do like a fitness class for us to get us moving. And I'm organizing a psychologist, a nutritionist, and a physio to have a chat once a week with our team, just about discussing how we can obviously work together a little bit more efficiently, and how we can move and make sure that we're staying mentally and physically healthy. So yeah.
That's awesome. Well, so one of the things that we always do is group fitness on a Monday night. So I've always had this. Yeah, well, so one of my girlfriends runs a boot camp, and she's called Bridge Fitness. And when she started her company, it was literally like, I don't know, 2 months after I'd started mine. So I just started, and then I said to her, go on, you can do it. So she started hers, and it was initially for women outside, and she did it in Elwood.
Yeah.
And after a while, I said to her, hey, I'd love it if I could pay from the company for you to come and do it 1 day a week. And the guys can come or not come, but it's a good like team building thing, because you get out of work, and we stop at 4:30 on a Monday. So, it's all that stuff.
That's amazing.
And it's so good.
I live in Elwood, by the way. So I'm like, oh, what? I've never seen everyone.
Well, so she's switched to doing it online. So we did it online with her last night. That's the second time we've done it, and it's pretty cool. Yeah. And then she's also hooked up yoga for us to do as well. So we're going to do that on a Wednesday. So it's going to be...
That's great. That sounds like an amazing setup. It's good. It's like, I think it's really important for organizations like yourself to be thinking, or like have a bit of forward thinking, and actually be thinking about your health and well-being of all your staff. I think everyone, first off, we're thinking like, how's everyone going to be efficient? How everyone's going to be productive in the work? Yeah. My first initial thought is, how's everyone going to cope mentally and physically being at home? Whether or not they're working efficiently, that's second there, because it's great to still have a job, but it's really important to have a life and to be healthy.
So you'll love this. So I was telling you before that I've been feeling a bit like a girl guide, and coming up with different ways to sort of help the team. So I've got a team of about 8 at one time. There's like contractors that sit around that, but there's sort of like a solid team of 8. And And I was like, okay, well, so we'll do this like phone call every day or Zoom meeting every day. That's fine, but everyone will get a bit bored after a while. So what I did was, and I also figured out that in a week, I pay for the guys for a coffee downstairs whenever they want each day. And that probably costs me a couple of $100 a week.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, I'm not going to be spending that anymore. So why don't I reallocate that money to a couple of prizes each week? So we do, for the first 2 weeks, I did it every single day. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm going to kill myself. So no, not really, just it was intense. But
No, I know you mean. I know you mean. It's recorded, but I know you mean.
But the first week, so it was like Monday Madness, I can't remember them all now, Wonderful Wednesday,
Yeah.
Fancy Dress Friday, whatever. And so there was all these different themes across each day, and they had a challenge that they had to do, and they had to post it by 5 o'clock, and then it would get judged.
Yeah.
And you got 3 points for a win and 1 for a runner-up. And then at the end of the week, whoever had got the most points, I sent them something that afternoon, and the runner-up got something too. But it was so cool because I could also then support small business around the place. So my favourite one was our urban designer quite likes cocktails. He's quite into cocktails, and he won the second week. And he said to me, oh, Nicola, I don't want flowers, because I sent flowers the first week to the girl that won the first week.
Wow.
I was like, I got this, Kim. I got this.
Flowers are one of my favourite things, by the way.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I named my daughter, like my daughter's name's Queenie Blossom, so I love flowers.
Oh, gorgeous.
Yeah.
Really sweet. Yeah. Well, I've had a bunch of flowers sitting on my desk for now 4 weeks. I think I need to go and buy some new ones. But anyway, the best thing was that the second week I'm going cocktails. What can I get for him? And I contacted the Everly, which is like the cocktail bar in Fitzroy. Okay. And they were doing freshly made home delivered cocktails. So it's so cool. So they delivered in this vacuum sealed plastic container, and it said on it, made by Matthew at 3 p.m. or whatever. Yeah. And they also delivered 2 massive blocks of ice and then swizzle sticks and all this. And so he could make up these 2 cocktails at home.
That's amazing. That sounds like it sounds hilarious. I was actually one of our social groups, and we've had a few times where people have dressed up, and we have dress up parties and stuff like that. And we're hilarious. We don't really care. And I'm infamously known as the Dark Knight, and not I changed my email, one of my personal emails, to the Dark Knight, because I dressed up in a Batman uniform one time, and it was just funny, and I was being quite young, and that's like my nickname now. It's like the Dark Knight. It's like a racial / friendship type of joke, and mate, we have a really good group of people that I'm really proud of. Inside work and then outside work, but I've still remained friends. And one of the people that was working at our company I'd known since I was 12 years old. So it's been a lifelong relationship and really good friendship. So it's been kind of good. So take me back a few years, Nicola. Take me how your career started. You went to university, you started in WA, I think you mentioned before. And you studied planning straight away. Yeah. Tell me how that went.
It was good. Everyone that I went to uni with seemed to know they wanted to be a town planner, and I think the funniest thing was that when I was young, I had no idea. I wanted to be either an actress or a newsreader, or I don't know, something like that. And then mum was saying I should find a job or a career that's got lots of jobs. So mum just went through the paper each weekend, and she was like, oh, there's urban regional planner, whatever this is, you should do this. So
she was probably right now, to be honest.
Well, actually, it's true right now, luckily. I mean, you think of all those poor people that are losing their jobs and things right now. We had, just a side note, we had a crap year last year with niche, because a lot of our work was in land development. So because my background, planning, but also because I was a DM for Pete for 1.5 years, then we had such a focus on land development, and then when the land market started to fall, that we'd adapted and evolved, but perhaps not as quickly as we should have done. And so, it's been great to be a planner in these times. And to be honest, my team all had to be resilient last year, so they're finding this year a lot easier to be resilient because they've already got all the techniques and strategies in place, surprisingly. But anyway, planning's really good. And I the thing that I love is I did a Masters of Comms as well. And
oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
What? So in like, you did 5 years of like study straight, yeah?
Well, no, I did it like, I can't remember how long afterwards. I think I worked for a really amazing company called CLE, and they were one of the bigger firms in Perth. Loved it, got to sort of 7 years or something. And I've noticed this with all my staff, when they get to about between the ages of 27 and 30, they tend to just reassess and go, do I want to be a planner? Do I want to be a developer? Do I want to do comms?
Yeah.
Do I want to move? Whatever. So that was mine. And I thought, oh, I like talking. So I'll go.
So do I, by the way.
So I went and did this communications masters, and it was so good because it was all about creative writing. I learned a lot of technical skills around like media releases, and a lot to do with writing communication strategies and consultation.
Yeah.
Segue, which has come in so handy, because right now a lot of councils have been saying, oh, we have to stop all of our projects because we can't do face-to-face consultation. And I keep pushing back on people saying, well, consultation, yes, when you get you hire out a room and you tell people that you're going to be either informing them about a plan or consulting on a plan or whatever,
Yeah.
and you get your token sort of 30 to 150 or whatever that number is, you often get the same type of people coming. So like, you might not go, I might not go, we might be at work, but maybe my mum might go because she's at home and she's got the time to go or whatever. So you tend to get like a disproportionate collection of the community going to these things.
Yeah, correct.
And in the environment that we're in today, we actually can now use Zoom and all these add-ons. So there's like, well, there's 1,000 different things that can digitize all the text, or you can use like online sticky notes, or you can use gamification. There's like all these different cool things that you can use to do consultation and actually get a greater audience doing consultation than you might have otherwise done.
Yeah, correct.
Really
Because
cool.
half the time it's, based on my experience, half the stress is the travel time to consultation and to these meetings. That's half of it. So you're minimizing and you're reducing that travel time, and people are able to quickly log in on a Zoom account or Skype, whatever it is, and actually participate still. So you're probably going to get a lot more involvement and a lot greater feedback because more volume of people faster. And councils predominantly, if you look at their structure, it's, I believe, and I hope anyone listening out there doesn't take it to offense, very much a Jurassic Park type of structure at times. And because of that, it's like people have to have that face-to-face, sit-down contact in order to feel that they're being effective and being efficient. But I don't think that's quite true now. And this is a really good time, I think, within the industry, because people are realizing now that you don't have to conduct business the way we've always done it. There's so many more ways that once you become a bit of tech savvy, you're able to communicate very efficiently still. So
it's so true. And with planning, we do so much consultation where you are out in the community trying to find out if someone likes a scheme amendment or a structure plan or whatever. The only thing will be the oldies, I guess, potentially not being able to hook in. But like, my mum invited me to house party before I was on house party, and she was a teenager when the
She had those cocktails, didn't she? Like, they got sent for Fitzroy Street, house party, mum. She sounds ideal.
Look, she's a wonderful older Glaswegian woman. That is not far from the truth.
She sounds ideal. Sounds amazing.
Yeah. So I guess, anyway, that was me doing a bit of segue, but that was planning and comms, and that's how I reckon it's now sort of evolved into what we do at Niche, maybe. Like, it's.
Tell me when you started the business. Like, were you sure of who you were? Like, obviously starting a business, a lot of people know, like, straight out from uni that this is what they're going to do. They have an understanding. They sort of planned their career pretty well. I wasn't one of those. I went traveling and did everything else before I built my career. But tell me about you. Tell me about how you started Niche. Yeah.
So there's a funny story where I found, in that sort of 27-year-old mindset, I found an old newspaper article at Mum's, and I had been interviewed when I was maybe straight out of uni in my first job, and there I am in this kind of 1990s olive green power suit. It's brilliant. And, like blonde bob, like this kind of number.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about how I want to have local government experience and I want to work in consulting and I'm really interested in development and I'd like to work and live interstate and I'd like to own my own business.
Yeah. Okay.
And it is so funny because I read it as a 27-year-old going, okay, well, I've worked at council, did that. That was cool. Worked in consulting, loved that.
Yeah.
Looking for something new. What do I want to do? And I was like, the two things I haven't done is move interstate and start my own business. Sweet, cool, I'll do that. That'll be fine.
Chuck all your stuff in a convertible, drive across country, start again. Here I am.
Pretty much. It's funny because people say, wow, you were so brave to start in a whole new state. And I used to always say that's not true. I guess maybe upon reflection, it was maybe a bit of a ballsy move. But I always just thought that I could like give it a go. And if it didn't work, I could go back to Perth, move back in with my parents, I don't know, start a florist, whatever. So I started Niche in August 2012. Yeah, 2012. Wow. So 8 years this year.
And I'm sure you've had trialing time since then. And I guess, what was the first year like? Obviously trying to build up that clientele, trying to build rapport, trying to learn different authority operations and the VPA. We were talking offline before and talking like getting a greater understanding of how the Victorian planning, obviously authority goes through that process to approve planning for various organizations. So tell me a bit about that. Was it quite tough to get used to?
Yeah, it was. So prior to starting, I actually had a really lucky soft start, I guess. I was telling you about how I worked for a lady who was based in Tasmania and she wanted to start her business up here and I helped her front it for sort of a year or two before I started Niche. Okay. She went back to Tassie and so then I was left going, oh, what am I going to do? Okay, fine, I'll start my own business. But that was in hindsight, that was actually quite nice because it was an opportunity for me to sort of see the lay of the land in Victoria, I guess. But I also had a lot of really lucky opportunities and also because I like to talk to people, I never walked away from an opportunity. So if someone said to me, so I went to this Planning Institute event and the Minister for Planning was there at the time and I was like, oh, how are you going? Just talking to him about planning and what was happening in Victoria. And then he introduced me to Kathy Mitchell and then Kathy Mitchell, who's the head of planning panels, she was just talking to me about women in planning and Victoria. Yeah. And, it's almost, it started to spread that then I knew different people and it just, people in Victoria are really good at sharing the love. Like they're really good at helping small businesses. They're really good at not cutting down tall poppies. It's a very collaborative environment in Victoria. And there's some amazing people like Paul Cassidy, who was at the VPA or still is, but Paul and I worked on a project together on opposite sides of the fence when I was at Pete. And I had so much respect for this guy at the VPA that knew all the policies and positions and stood his ground, but was also able to, work with different landowners to talk about different uses. I just was really impressed. And even to this day, I still have really good relationships with different people in government, which just helps you enjoy your work, I think, and consultants as well. So like Val Nanacone, for example, he was, I don't know if you know him, but he was. No,
I don't know. Tell me.
I was going to tell you about him before when you were talking about your name, because when I first met Val, his name's Valentine, and I was always like, that's an interesting name, and it's a family name as well. But he's a traffic engineer that works at, or at the time worked for Cartno, and he was my traffic consultant when I was at Pete, and I knew nothing about traffic, and his office was up in Collingwood, and I knew nothing about Collingwood, and I used to jump in a taxi and go out there and have a coffee with him, and he was just a really friendly guy that was happy to have a chat with me about things. Mm-hmm. And then he left, started his own business, and then I kind of chatted with him, and so relationships like that then start to foster other relationships, and it's just nice. I enjoy being surrounded by a really supportive group of friends, clients, something.
So you work, you're currently, I saw that you're doing a bit of work and you sit on the board of the minister, like part of the planning board. I saw that cheekily. I was like, wow. So tell me, how did you get into that? Obviously, it's a difficult role to sit on any board, but to sit on a board within the industry that you work in. Tell me a bit about that.
That's really, I'm pretty lucky and impressed and happy to be in that situation. It's been quite an opportunity. So ever since I was 19, give or take, so I worked for this amazing woman called Jenny Smithson, who's now in Sydney. I think she's like in the high courts or something. But Jenny in WA was the head of a planning firm, and she had blonde hair and she used to wear olive green jackets. And so
So that's where you got the idea from.
But she was pretty cool. Like in the 80s, she would have been probably one of the only planners in Perth, and she used to have to sort of drink whiskey and smoke cigars with all the blokes, and she, you know, held her own. She was pretty impressive. Well, still is impressive. But anyway, now hold on. Why was I telling you that story about Jenny?
How you got into the board of planning?
Jenny was the national counsellor at the time in PIA and the Planning Institute of Australia. And I remember thinking, wow, she's amazing. And as a result of that, I became the young planner rep in PIA, Planning Institute of Australia. Yep. And then that just meant that I then was on divisional committees thereafter, even after I went travelling and came back and got into Victoria. And I thought, well, maybe I won't do PIA as much. And I thought, well, that's stupid. This is the time to be doing it. Got back into PIA here. And it's just, for me, the Planning Institute's been this really good network of planners across Australia that I've been able to hook into and have support. Like at times like this, you can have support with when you need them. And yeah, I've got a lot of girl and guy mates across the globe now through PIA. And yeah, the opportunity came up to be the board member. So each state elects a representative that'll sit on the board. So I put my hand up probably about 2 years ago, I think. Wow. And yeah, it's really good. I always wanted to have a go at being on a board. Like it's not a paid board, so it's, you know, you're volunteering your time, but it's just brilliant because you're getting to, like, if you think about it, I'm 100% shareholder of Niche currently. That will change this year, but I'm 100% shareholder of Niche, and that means I'm my own board and I'm making my own decisions. Yep. It's so nice to be on a board with other people and watching them all make and having a say in financial decisions. You know, having a look at the long-term growth of the organisation, making strategic directions. It's really cool.
Yeah, I do have a little bit of experience on boards since I was quite young, and such an interesting space. I was on the board of a non-profit organisation who it's called Caravic, and it was quite interesting. It's a board mixed with people from Caribbean descent who live in Australia, who are born in Australia. And we do a lot of work with foreign bodies and government authorities to help people who come to Australia from the Caribbean region, especially people don't realise the Caribbean has so many natural disasters that occur. And when people do move across to Australia, the sense of community is very important. But Australia's quite a big place compared to the Caribbean. We're like my country has 1 million people, like 900,000 people. That's like Frankston or like certain outer suburb
that's
towns.
Crazy.
Yeah, exactly right. So like I sit on this board, and I was lucky enough to be vice president, which is such an important position in regards to helping people to integrate into just Australian society and getting Australian society to understand the Caribbean culture and understanding what's important to us and how we view life, and working with different, as I said, government like authorities and different government bodies to understand that the immigration laws, and trying to help people through that who are living in the Caribbean who want to migrate across to Australia but don't have someone to reference or don't have someone to connect with. And just going through that process really opened my eyes a lot to sitting on boards. And it can be tough, to be honest with you, sitting on boards from a political point of view. It can be very tough. Where I'm like a country boy. I played footy, grew up playing cricket from the Mornington Peninsula. So I just tell it how it is. And I'm just like, no, that's not right. We need to be doing more where that is not always great. And diplomacy is something that I've learned. I've learned along the way.
Yeah.
It's been quite tough. But it's taught me a lot. It's taught me a lot how to communicate on various levels. And I think you did a communications master's. You were saying, I think we mentioned it offline, that like 93% of communication is non-verbal. And like reading between the lines with diplomacy is sometimes so hard when someone's like they're saying something but meaning something else. And
Yeah, completely.
how do you dissect through that whilst you're in a great position in your life? You sit on these boards, you run a company. Sometimes, like, how do you dissect your way through that? Think about being, a 22-year-old female who's just finished planning about to set off her career, and with so many walls put in front of her, trying to get to where she needs to get to.
It's bloody tough. It is pretty hard. I was listening just to you then, you used the word lucky just like I was as well, and maybe we shouldn't. Like, maybe it's not luck, maybe it is pure determination and hard work. I'm always thinking about the fact that I employ a bunch of amazing women and how to mentor them so that they can, and the guys as well, but how to mentor them so that they can achieve the best. And to be honest, back in the 90s, it was a completely different world, and it was a pretty full-on world, like with lots of dodgy old clients and all that sort of stuff, so the girls or the women of today that I'm employing are, by talking to them, it sounds as though they're perhaps not in as difficult a position as I might have been all those years ago. But I think and I definitely think that we're all starting to be a little bit more equal in planning anyway. Women and men are all challenged with the same sort of issues.
Yes.
But yes, how do you deal with communication and trying to get ahead? I think you've just got to dance to the beat of your own drum. Like, I always tell the guys, we do this little training in-house about business development, and I tell them to get their elevator spiel. And so, what is your sort of 10-second grab about who you are and what you do? But then does that adapt depending on who you're talking to? Yeah, of course it does. And so getting them to learn different ways to explain who they are and what they do to different people. I think there's that, which is really kind of what you were saying offline, understanding yourself. So it takes a while to know who you are and what you value. And I am still learning. I have this amazing staff member, Naomi, who constantly challenges me in a great way. Like, she is much more versed in sustainability than I am. She's much more versed in women's rights than I am. She's, like all that stuff. And we'll have these great conversations in-house. And then I think, okay, well, I better deal with that a bit differently. Like a lecturer at RMIT, I better think about how I'm dealing with that when I talk to students next time. So I think one is know yourself and keep learning about yourself and keep adapting. I think you have to try not to put up walls yourself. I think the more you put up walls, the more other people will put up walls. So I always say that everyone has a story. So, if someone contacts you, Romain, and says, hey, do you want to catch up and have a chat? Why wouldn't you? Like, is there a reason why you wouldn't? No, of course there's not. So look at it as a positive, and you never know where that'll go. I used to, when I first started the business, I used to accept coffees from lots and lots of kind of students that wanted to catch up. And one of the girls that worked for me, she was like, why is that? Like, what do you do? It takes a lot of your time. Yeah. And I explained to her, it's because you never know where those students are going to go, and you never know what help they might need in the future, but what help I might need in the future. So if I can give up 20 minutes of my time to have a coffee, because I want to have a coffee anyway, and chat to them about their career or what they're looking to do in the future, then that'll be paid back most often tenfold as you move forward through your career. So I think that's kind of, for me, it is about just sharing and learning and trying to get to know yourself as much as possible.
Yeah, so a little bit, I guess, being a bit vulnerable enough to put yourself into a situation and be brave enough to network. Yeah, and it is hard for some people to be able to do, but if you truly want something and you want your career to be fair, I think you have to take chances on yourself as well, and it's important. And Yeah, it's really important. So you mentioned before sustainability, and I love at the moment. The reason why I started the podcast is like I don't have this perfect reason, but I literally was thinking about being a developer and the life that I want to lead for my child and my family, and how I'm designing communities for the future, and what's going to be my legacy. And I was like, I want to, one, design things that I live in, and two, I want to create a sustainable community for future generations, for my child and for her children and for everyone. And I don't just want to make money. And when I changed that initial thing, I think everyone worries about is like getting out of uni, getting a job, making money. Once I moved away from that, I have so much more enjoyment in my job, to be honest with you. So much more enjoyment. And now I'm thinking about things long term. But it's funny. I was on the plane going to Italy in October. That's when I came up with the young developer, and I was like working on a paper about global warming and what happens when the temperature changes in 2 degrees Celsius, whatever. And I was like, what does happen? And I could see what was happening on this program I was writing. I was like, far out, like all these places that I'm designing are like creating issues for the future. So I started working on this thing. I landed in, I was on the way to Spain, on the way to Italy. I went to Spain for a week. I landed in Spain, had the idea. By the time I got to Italy, I had like the wireframe blueprint for what I was going to do. And I came back a month later and I started. Yeah. And I was like, I'm just going to do it. So sustainability is a big thing for me now in my life. Like, tell me about the role that niche plays within the sustainability field at the moment.
Yeah, cool.
What work are you doing?
We're actually doing quite a lot. And I think it's probably due to the fact that we've got Nomi and another guy, Kim, our urban designer. The two of them have been leading the charge probably for at least the past 2 years, I'd say. So there was, and look, we still have heaps of things that we need to be doing, but we...
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
We have to start somewhere though, Nicola. Like we have to start somewhere. Like just have a go. Like
yeah. And so we had we jumped online and we started to create like databases to measure, like how much output we had in terms of waste or electricity. We started to look at offsets for flights. We bought office Myki cards to encourage people to catch public transport rather than drive. Yep. We got a Bokashi bin, like all these little things. Even the Bokashi bin was great because, well, here you go. So for the young guys, I wanted them to understand that just because they want sustainability to happen, they need to think about the financial implications as well.
Yep.
So they had to come up with a business case anytime they wanted to do something. So they have this group of the young ones called Niche Next Gen. Yeah. I'm such a taskmaster. Anyway, and so they got given a budget, which is like the social budget, but also like donations, and then anything that they could save money in the company, they could then reallocate for further donations or whatever that they wanted to do. And so they started to look into our electricity provider and realized that we could actually change provider and it would cost us less, but it was more sustainable. So they put together this business case around it, and I was like, great. So we changed that. And then the Bokashi bin, they wanted to put a Bokashi bin in this kind of small office that we've got. And I'm thinking it's like a compost. And I'm like, oh my God, it's going to stink and it's going to be right beside the boardroom. What are they thinking? And so they figured out all these different ways to reduce smell. They spoke to the local community garden and organised that they could drop it off. They sent up a roster so people have to go in twos and plant it in the garden. Like, they are bloody awesome. And I think they would say that it's good having a boss that supports what they're keen on doing, and I'm happy that means that they're happy in their workplace. But even more so, I'm stoked that it means that Niche as a company is young, adaptable, responsive, and forward-thinking in regards to sustainability. Yeah. I think it's really cool.
That's amazing. It's good that you're putting those initiatives in and making them think about it from a business point of view as well. Yeah. We live in a business environment, and at the end of the day, we have to be profitable, and we have to obviously be profitable in order to employ people. And sustainability sometimes the initial cost is quite substantial, but I don't know, I guess the future cost of, correct.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's been so interesting because we've changed these internal practices. That's then changed the type of work that we then want to be doing.
Tell me a bit more about that. It's like, I can see those smile. Like I have like, I don't know, I've probably got this big smile on my face, but you've got this massive, as soon as you said that. Tell me about the work.
Well, so we were really lucky because, lucky again, but we got an opportunity to work on a Nightingale project in Ballarat, and it was the first sustainable apartment building in Ballarat, which is bloody awesome. And it's like cooey from the train station, and it's got this funky warehouse beside it with a cool sign on the side, and they're going to have like, I think it's look, I didn't do the permit, but I think it's got a cafe underneath it, and business space, and it's just awesome. And Naomi has been working with Celia on that, so the two of them are really passionate about regions and sustainability, so that just like ticks all the boxes and just makes us feel so good about the work that we're doing. So so there's that. And then the other thing, so this is really interesting, we talk about this in the office all the time. I was brought up in the burbs in Perth, so I was brought up in something equivalent to, say, a Frankston on the beach, I guess, which Frankston is on the beach, but like Perth Beach. Like
I was, Mornington Peninsula, Frankston, and
So for me, like growing up in the suburbs, I can walk down the middle of the roads because there's hardly any cars. Sure, there's people that drive to work at 8, or probably more like 6:37. And yes, there's people that come back at 6:37. But when I was growing up, you could play in all the streets. There were so many parks, community open space or community centres, shopping centres. You could see your friends because everyone could walk to it. And it's interesting because the guys in my office have all been brought up in inner city. So they're all like really can diss on outer suburbia and be like, it's really shit, like it's not providing sustainable outcomes and we need to think better about it. And they're right. Like if it's public transport, yes, it's not really ideal. They're not hitting the nail on the head. And employment, yes, completely agree. But it's been so interesting to take each of them, this will make you laugh, take each of them to Perth. And we've stayed at my parents' house a few times when we've done back in Perth. But they've got to stay with my parents, and then
that's awesome.
Lots of spare rooms. But then like you wake up and then we'll go for like a run to the beach or a walk to the local cafe, and they're like, okay, this is maybe not as bad as I thought it was. Still not as good as, say, a Fitzroy or a Richmond, but
I don't go north side, sorry. I don't cross that river.
Yeah. But I guess it's nice. It's nice for people to have an appreciation of different areas and the pros and cons, like Stonington unfortunately has, so I live in Stonington, and it has the lowest percentage of open space, and they've been working on that. They've been buying up little parks or little lots that haven't been developed and turning it into parks. But if you look at a new structure plan in Whittlesea, you have to provide 4% passive, 6% active. Like that's a given. So, you are getting more of that open space community on the fringes. It's just, and developers have more of a social responsibility to report back to their shareholders that they're providing something of substance.
That's interesting. Well, I had Brendan Condon. I'm not sure if you know Brendan. If you Google on your phone, maybe now. No, I'm joking. He owns this thing. No, I'm joking with you. He owns a couple of companies. One of them is called the Cape, and he designed a basic Cape Patterson in Victoria.
Oh yes, I've heard this. This is down south.
Yeah, so I spent a lot of time with Brendan over the last couple of months and getting to know him and an amazing work that he does. And it's basically a complete community that's 100% sustainable. Like it is.
It's amazing.
Unreal. Like his architecture is so advanced and beautiful. And all I keep thinking is like, and he also owns a couple of other businesses that operate in Port Melbourne and South Melbourne. And he's doing something called the Farm, which is like a car park rooftop farm in Melbourne, where he's converted. It was a car park that was just radiating heat, obviously, and causing so much like environmental issues. turned it into a farm. So now that the produce that it produces goes to all the local businesses around the area. And it's so interesting because I myself, being a developer or an engineer who works in a development industry, I'm so like, I get frustrated at myself a little bit because I think that all this space that we have and that we currently have, all these buildings that we currently have, we could be doing so much more with the limited amount of space that we have in the city if we actually just thought collaboratively, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. And just quickly, so I chair the UDAA Sustainability Innovation Technology Committee. Yeah, and it's really interesting because we've been asking DELP to provide us with an update on Plan Melbourne, specifically in regard to the sustainability actions. And so we're working with DELP on that right now to sort of work through each one and try and respond to how buildings, not just land, but buildings can also better address sustainability. And just secretly in that same headspace of accepting things, because I accept too many things, but I was a national judge for UDAA for the last couple of years with these two 70-year-old blokes who will never see this because they're two 70-year-old blokes, so that'll be fine. They're amazing, knowledgeable, insane. Like, I learned so much. But we got to go and judge 11 different categories in each state, and it takes quite a while. But you get to see what people are doing in regard to sustainability and amazing examples across each state. So Aquarivo from Victoria was up this year.
That's Villawood. I just had
amazing.
Rory Costello on the podcast last week.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
I had him on exactly what we're doing now, mate. He is cool. He's a very cool guy. Have you met him?
Oh yeah. I know Rory really well. Yeah. But so there's a lot of different examples around Australia that are just smashing goals. It's pretty amazing.
Well, I think the Planning Authority and the Water Authority are probably the two most important bodies, I guess, that, man, so let's just say in like 5 years' time or 10 years' time, obviously, we've got the COVID-19 issue, right? And everyone's, this will never happen, this will never happen, this will never happen. And it's like, bury their head in the sand and we'll be fine and we won't get sick and we don't need to take the measures necessarily to prevent it spreading further and prevent further damage to our communities from a health point of view. I take that same framework and I place it against sustainability and global warming. And I think people have the exact same mentality towards global warming, is that it's not affecting me. And is it real? Oh, maybe not. I'll just continue with my day-to-day life. Yeah. And I really struggle at times to be able to educate people and try to show them what the impacts of sustainability and what the impacts of global warming will have on our community's health. And it's really hard for me at the moment. I'm really struggling with it, but we have like leaders like yourself and Brendan and other people who run companies and organizations that are really, really trying. And when I saw Aquarivo's design, I loved it. I thought it was quite cool. It was really, really cool, quite advanced.
I think what Rory did really well there was work with Terry. So Terry's at Southeast Water, and Terry's been one of the main drivers of, I think the two of them almost over a beer decided that, this needs to be pushed and challenged. And so if you ever
but that's the benefits of being I guess middle-aged male with lots of money. I think things get moved a lot faster.
That's it. But it's also about relationships. Rory, I don't know how he knows Terry, but Rory and Terry are always in the corporate try. You see them running and doing it together. They've known each other for years. So if you've got a developer and Southeast Water and they're talking about how stuff just isn't happening the way it should, then, that's a good relationship to further a conversation for someone to try something a bit different.
Yeah.
It's interesting because when we judged it, it was really hard because it is an amazing example in Victoria. Like, it's insane. Yeah. There's actually a few examples of that similar type thing happening in other states as well. So what we also need to try and do is it'll be great to see Aquarivo go on the ground, and because they haven't actually put a lot of the homes on the ground yet. So have it happen and then see the implications. And the thing that I loved the most was it was a closed loop system. So you could actually then pick up that example and put it into regions.
Yeah.
And you
Okay.
could
Yes.
use in a regional setting, which would be
Yeah.
brilliant. So,
Well, that's like interesting because that's the same as Brendan. I think Brendan and Rory are really good friends, by the way.
right.
Yeah, they're really good friends. So they yeah, really, really close friends, 25 years friendship. And Brendan's like design and models is so interesting because you're able to all of his sustainable designs, I think a couple of his houses meet the 10-star rating and is amazing. But every design is able to be downloaded and copied. So he gives away all of his IP for free.
Wow.
Yeah, and up until I think it was 2017, there was like 40,000 people who have downloaded his IP and used his designs to do their homes or do various small townhouses, whatever.
So cool.
But it's free, and that's what these guys like Rory, and he's amazing, and Brendan, they're like, okay, well, this is what we did. Here you go, have it for free. Let's just be leaders and let's just change how we do things. Let's share this information and knowledge, which I find really interesting. And how do you get, one more question, I know it's sort of running out of time and it's busy. How do you get one of the biggest, I guess, frustrations where people have is that how long things take to get approval from a planning and state government point of view and getting them through that process.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. Tell me through that process. Talk me through that process.
Wow. So remember I told you that I'm more people oriented than technical oriented, but what I can tell you is that from our experience, it takes much longer than you always think it should. So when I worked in council, you would have an application come in and someone at the admin would check through and make sure that it all been provided. And most often things were missing. So then they'd send it back and the applicant would change again, shoot it back in. So there's a lot of that would take time. And I've definitely worked for clients where they've said, oh, look, let's just get that in anyway. It doesn't matter that it's missing that or whatever. And when you're on the other side in council, you get so pissed off because you're like, crap, mate, I just needed the 6 things that I needed to have. So there's that.
Yeah.
Then there's just pure statutory timeframes. So, and under-resourcing. So if there's not enough money in a council to employ enough staff, then you can find that there's X amount of staff with this many applications. And I used to have literally a pile like this that sat up on a shelf.
Yeah.
And I used to take it down each day and try and get through it. And it was really soul destroying. You just couldn't get through it. And then the phone would be ringing all the time with people saying, where's my application? And if it was someone that was really friendly or they were happy to come into the counter and just explain it all to me, then I'd be like, oh, I'll just get that one done. That's really easy.
Yeah.
Whereas if it was someone that was calling a whinge to say that I'd, piss farmer around or whatever. And that's me. I had been a consultant before that. I was working at council for 10 months. That's all I could handle because I'm not a local government planner at all, very much. And then I went back to consulting. But for me, that ability to understand the perils of the poor local or the plight of the poor local government planner, that's kind of fair enough. So we need to better resource. But the other thing is, and we talk about it at the Planning Institute, we've been going through this whole thing of accreditation of planners. So a little bit like how you have accreditation, accredited accountants,
engineers and stuff like that, which I still have to do mine. Oh God.
Right, well that.
Yeah.
So the Planning Institute decided to bring that in years ago when I was 22 or something, and we all thought, oh, we better do it just so we've got it, and nothing happened for a really long time. So everyone's been a bit disillusioned. But in the last 12 months in South Australia, they've brought in legislation that says you have to be a registered planner to, I can't remember, sign off a structure plan, whatever it is.
Yes.
And then they're doing that in Sydney. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to remove the mundane things so that a planner isn't necessarily someone that's just doing stamping and checking. That should be something that we can do online, that a computer could do. Planners are planners because we're really good at talking to people, understanding people, interpreting legislation, getting good outcomes. That's what a planner should be doing.
Yeah, yeah.
And what ends up happening is that a planner ends up being a process person who then can get really like too many applications, not enough pay, trying to get stuff through, legislation saying that, they have to do X and Y, might not be clear. Politicians, local councillors getting too involved when they shouldn't, like there should be more delegation. I could tell you 1,000 things that should change in the planning system, but all those things are very hard to change, and all those things need strong political support to be able to do that. And it's dicey. Like if you're a politician and you stand up and say that that's what you want, are you going to get the votes? Yeah, some, but maybe not others. So
yeah, correct.
Anyway,
well,
answer.
Thank you so much for coming on, Nicola. I really appreciate it. It's actually great. It's actually awesome. One of the more energetic, sort of feel good podcast interviews that I've done. I feel great after this one.
Nice.
It's been lovely. I'll have to get you on properly in the studio when things go back to normal and we get to meet, and I get you to set up, and it's a little bit easier, I think.
All right, this has been fun.
Yeah, but this is amazing. So I'll release this to my audience and my podcast viewers, and I'm sure they'll enjoy it as much as I did. Thank you so much.
No, not a problem. Thanks for giving me an excuse to put on some lip gloss this morning.
I love the colour, by the way. It's amazing.
Good man. All right, I'll speak to you in the flesh soon.
All right, cool.
See ya.